Hello, we are live. This is the October edition of the Total Bollix live stream, and this month we're going to be chatting about speculative fiction whilst Hannah has returned from feeding the cats.
Was that dramatic enough? That's the question.
No, you could have gone harder.
Okay, I can do it again. One sec.
It was quite subpar, to be honest.
That's better.
Much better.
If I had broken my sofa, I'd have been devastated.
It would have been hilarious, though. Oh,
two babies. Oh, hello. Oh, my God.
love you, the cats. That's so cute. Okay,
I thought I'd done
something
something then. I was like, oh, it's just Lizzie.
I was like, oh, that's just my face.
Hi, Anna. So yes, this month is speculative, and I've been having a great time all month with what speculative actually means, and I've decided that for me, for this live stream, it's going to mean books that have a question to be answered, that is answered in kind of a non-contemporary, normal manner. Has some sort of element of that ain't real mixed in, is what I'm going for. Feel free to have your own definition of speculative, because I've seen things online that suggest that like all of like fantasy and sci-fi comes under speculative.
Well, I was gonna say, is it worth having like a little discussion first, seeing as it's just the three of us? We've got the time, because I think you raise a really good point. I think fundamentally for me, speculative fiction has to not necessarily answer a question, but pose a question that cannot be answered with the logic of a contemporary audience, right? Or like just as the world that we live in as standard. So it could be something as simple as a fantasy or ghost novel where there is something supernatural at play. But the ones that I read, they're far more speculative in like a sci-fi, oh my goodness, kind of way. Could you hear that?
Yeah.
He's annoyed because he wants to go outside.
If you open the door, just stand at the doorway.
No, Spamlet, no, please.
It's not happening. He will get lost. He will get eaten by something. You're too tiny. I don't wish to lose you. He's been outside all morning. He's fine. He's just being dramatic. But that was quite the entrance. Yeah, so I think it can be anything to do with that. But I think also poetry or something that is quite emotive driven could also be speculative, because if you're posing a question but it's more of like a philosophical, spiritual nature, I think that would work as well.
I think also some historical fiction, like where you take real world events and say, what if this happened instead? So I don't know, just to use like the most common thing in British history, like what if Henry VIII had died after his first wife? Like what would have happened? And like I feel like that, whilst not having the kind of fantastical element, especially because it's based on like real world figures, it can't ever happen. It is like pondering a question that can never actually occur. And so I feel like that could potentially fit under speculative.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think fundamentally speculative is nice and vague. It's kind of like magical realism in the fact that it's kind of vague. I think that's a good thing, because I think it allows for flexibility that actually publishing in general kind of avoids, purely because it wants to stick everything to a box so it can market it. I think speculative fiction is probably a nice broad umbrella that does that, but actually it works really well because of that. Does that make any sense? Did I just talk myself around in circles? Who knows?
I get what you mean, but for me, with my little neurospicy brain, did not like the fact that I could not just identify what I needed to do for this month. This is why every time we've brought it up, every single time, my brain's like, I still don't know what I'm doing, because I can't neatly package it in a nice little box and go, it's that.
Yeah.
And so, whilst that is a perk of the genre, I guess I'll call it, because what even is a genre? Whilst it is a perk of the genre, in terms of trying to pick a book for a prompt to then talk about on a live stream, not great for neurospicy among us.
Also, can I just say that I just found barbecue sauce on my face that's clearly been there this entire time, and Zach and Lizzie said nothing.
I didn't like it.
I was like, I scratched my face and I was like, my face is sticky. There was barbecue sauce literally all up here.
Oh, I did see that.
I didn't notice it. Like, I genuinely didn't see it.
I didn't see it, but I have the excuse
no,
of I have you in a very small square, so I can see the comments as well. So I was never gonna see it. Like I've got you on a webcam level.
Did you
in like
actually
a
see it?
small
Did not
square.
say anything.
I thought it was.
You are awful.
Just leave it on the side. Just literally on the printer's fine.
Here?
On the printer's fine. On the print. There we go. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't know what a printer looks like.
You don't know what barbecue sauce is either,
I
apparently.
don't know what anything looks like. I've literally just I am, for all intents and purposes, an infant.
Is he joining this live stream or is he leaving?
Couldn't fucking tell you. He's going to play Spider-Man. So once his game starts playing, he'll shut the fuck up. But until then,
Oh, wonderful! I hope it's a PS5.
he said he wasn't going to make any silly little comments because it's not my live stream. If it was my live stream, he would.
I've lost
The controller that you left right in front of you. Yeah, it's right there.
Sorry about this, Abby. Sorry that Zach is completely useless and can't, get himself sorted before the live show started. Excuse
He
me.
swore on my live show. Does
What
not
is he
know.
doing?
I am a
chaos.
pure
You wouldn't
Christian.
catch us
That's
swearing.
not swear. How dare he?
I literally just did, but it's fine.
It's safe where it was, even though the disc wasn't there.
Oh, that's nice.
Right, I'm going now.
Is he done?
Yeah, I think so, hopefully.
See, people.
I
asking
can hear
questions.
someone. Yeah, it's just this dickhead. Don't worry about it.
Is there? I was gonna say flatmate, but you live in a house.
Housemate's fine. Housemate
Housemate.
also works. I personally like roommate. I find that very funny. I call Lizzie my roommate all the time.
It's so American.
That's why I do
We
it.
don't do that. We don't have roommates at uni.
We don't.
That would have been awful.
Oh, hey.
This is what happens if you have a cat on. Oh my god, that's it. Hannah is the only thing on this live. Hello. Goodbye.
He is the most gorgeous of boys.
He is. But yeah, back to the books.
Oh, I swear to God, though, if he climbs up on this bookcase, I'm going to kick off. He is going to climb up on this bookcase. Can you just put that over there?
Lizzie!
Yes.
What did you read?
I didn't read anything this month for this prompt. That's a lie. I probably did, but like we've been discussing, I actually found it really hard to define what speculative fiction was.
Yeah.
And I didn't really read anything that I was like immediately like, oh yes, I'm going to talk about this.
Mhm.
So instead, I'm going to talk about a book I read a couple of months ago, which is Isaac and the Egg by Bobby Palmer. This is literary. And the whole thing is about this guy called Isaac, weirdly. Who knew? Finding this supernatural egg who can walk and talk. We don't know if it's an egg or not. Like, literally the whole time, it's like, is this an egg? Nobody knows if it's an egg, and it's fucking weird. And it, unlike the egg, sometimes like just wanders off, and he's trying to find this egg. They go like on road trips. And this book is super dark. Like, it's really, 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 really sad. Like, once the question of what the fuck is happening is answered at the end, which I'm not going to spoil it because I do genuinely think people should pick this up. But look up content warnings. And I don't want to say the content warnings because it's quite a big reveal. But if you need them, please go look them up on the internet. If you don't, whatever. It's really, really, really sad once the question's answered. Which is basically what the fuck is going on and what the fuck is this egg and where the fuck did it come from?
Is this like a Humpty Dumpty retelling or something?
No, it's just about this guy who is driving in a car, hears some yelling. And
picks up a hitchhiker that's an egg.
Huh?
And gets an egg as a hitchhiker.
Basically. Yeah. I mean, okay, so I'm going to read you the little blurby bit because I think it'll probably explain it better than I'm trying to explain it because it was a long time since I read it. So So, a young man walks into the woods on the worst morning of his life and finds something there that will change everything. It's a tale that might seem familiar, but how it speaks to you will depend on how you've lived until now. Sometimes to get out of the woods, you have to go into them. Isaac and the Egg is one of the most hopeful, honest, and wildly imaginative novels you will ever read. That's all it says. Yeah. Isaac stands alone on a bridge and screams into the river below. Something screams back, and that, like everything which follows, is unforgettable. Those are like the only things about this book that is like on the cover.
What do you think? So, what is the question being posed then? I guess.
How you can go on with life when everything around you crashes down and the coping mechanisms people create.
Mechanisms. Mechanisms.
I said what I said. Yeah, there's so many things that happen in this book, but I don't want to give them away. But basically, one of the things that happens is he punches a wall, and there's mentions of like certain things like in passing that at the end it all really makes sense. So there's like a door upstairs which he walks past, but he never opens the room, and like that is something that when the reveal happens, you're like, oh, I get it now. Because like he like it's like a blink and you miss it kind of like one line where something's mentioned, and then it's like how we like process things and try to make things better like in retrospect, if you know what I mean. Like I'm trying to explain it without giving too many fucking spoilers. It's really, really hard.
I mean, you're definitely piquing my curiosity. Like,
yeah, I
you're
will
making me read it purely because I don't understand what you are talking about.
Well, I didn't know what this was about. Luckily, the content in this was something that doesn't personally trigger me, but I know that like it will trigger other people. So I do think it's important that people do look up content warnings if you need content warnings in general.
Would it trigger Hannah?
No.
Cool. Then we should read it.
But like there's certain things in this, like I really like these couple of pages.
Oh, I love when books do that.
Just a whole 3 pages of not a lot, and I'm like, yes, thank you.
That looks like internalized screaming to me.
No, that's just
it doesn't look very internal to me.
Well,
yeah.
it's just the
and there's quite a few really interesting like other kind of like things, and the way this is actually formatted as a book, like it's different font sizes, different fonts being used in certain places. And it's just a really interesting book that like explores human psychology, but like specifically to this one guy. And you also have like his phone's ringing and he doesn't answer, and he sees a name but you don't see the name, but no, he doesn't answer, and like his neighbor like looks in on him and gets worried, and like the police come around. Like it's all these like series of events, and this whole time he's concerned about this egg, and you're like, I can't let anyone see it. They might, they'll take it away from me, or like it's not safe. And it's all these imaginative ways that he's hiding this egg, and this egg is an absolute menace the entire time. And
a secret egg.
Yeah, he calls it egg, and he's like, it's not really an egg, but I don't really know what else to call it because that's what it looks like. And there's like a funny little bit of like, what should I call you? And this egg doesn't speak English, obviously, because why would it speak English? So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it, because everything else I'm thinking about is complete spoilers.
I mean, you've definitely piqued my interest.
Yeah.
It sounds absolutely mad.
It was a recommendation from Emma from, what's their username now?
Emma Novella.
Yeah, Novella
illustrations.
Yeah. And I heard very little about this book, but the way they were talking about it, I was like, yep, no, I gotta read it. That sounds fucking weird. Right up my alley.
That sounds weird.
And it is weird, but it was really, really good.
Yeah, it sounds very, very weird. It's made me think of a couple of books that I've read like years ago now that are not in any way the same, but they have vibes.
I do
vibes.
like a book that has just vibes. Like, I'm pretty into that. But there is a very important message kind of like strung through the whole book, which I think is really clever when it all comes to a head. Because like all the things that has been leading up to it, it has actually taken you down a path. But like in the middle, you're like, what the fuck am I reading? Like, what is this? I don't understand. Then by the end, you're like, oh, he got me. He got me right in the feels there.
I'm trying to think if I have any questions, but like, I don't know what to ask that wouldn't then just be a spoiler. Like, is it like a fast read?
I think I read it in half a day or something
It's
like
pretty
that.
speedy.
Like I think for me, I just got completely sucked in by the whole premise of it, and I just wanted to know what the fuck was going on. But I think it could be a quick read, but I think some people might struggle with it because it is such an obscure, like, odd concept. So like I found myself needing to reread a couple of pages if I missed something. So it was a quick read for me, but I don't necessarily think it'll be a quick read for everyone.
Mm. Fair enough. Definitely does sound like a wild ride.
Yeah. It is good though. Like, genuinely, if you like slightly weirder books that also has something to say. Because like this is the thing about this whole book. It's not weird just for the sake of being weird, which I really enjoyed, that there was a point to like everything. Rather than just being like totally random for being random's sake. I like books that do that, but this was something different. I really enjoyed what this author did, and I don't know. I want to double check because I can't remember if Bobby Palmer, if this was a debut. Let me have a look. I could be completely wrong though. 1 second. I should probably have looked this up beforehand, but hey, why would I do something stupid like that?
Is everything okay in Catland, Hannah?
So, right, I've moved the bookshelves around. So we've got a short, wide bookcase and 2 long, narrow bookcases. And Horatio has taken to jumping onto one and then onto the other, which was fine when there was nothing in the way. I have now swapped them round, which means that in the way of the bookcases is a glass terrarium, a glass lamp, and just piles of other crap that I haven't found a home for yet. Now, Horatio is a dickhead because he wants to be up there, and every time I sit down, he wanders back towards where he needs to jump so that he can clamber across everything and jump to the top. I stand up and he jumps down and runs away. I sit down again and he wanders back over. So I am just like getting up and sitting down because he is watching me, and every time I get up, he runs away. And every time I sit down, he goes back to the exact same spot. But the thing that blows my mind about this is we were out for 3 hours earlier. And when we came home, was he asleep up there where he knows he's not allowed? No, he was asleep in the kitchen because that's where he likes to be. So he is only doing that to get my attention. Because as aforementioned, dickhead. So I've locked him in the kitchen now. He's got food, he's got his litter tray. He can chill out in there for a bit.
Well, after that interlude, Lizzie,
I'm so sorry. I was trying really hard not to derail this entire thing by getting up and sitting down again.
It's fine. It's only me, Hannah. It's okay. Isaac and the Egg is a debut, which I am impressed by, and I do want to read more of whatever Bobby Palmer puts out because they're super interesting, and I like their writing style.
I might have to pick it up. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I think there was a couple of things at the beginning that I didn't understand. So I think upon a reread, like I'll see how I feel, because it was all like initial kind of like gut reactions. But yeah, it was a 4-star for me, which is pretty good.
Well, the 2 books it made me think of, I will mention now, just because I haven't read them this month, so I can't talk about them in depth. One of them I read in 2018, and that is The Ghost of Heaven by Marcus Sedgwick.
Mm-hmm.
This book, it's got 4 different parts, which you can just about see. There's like black pages in between, or at least they were in the edition that I actually read. I bought this afterwards. There we go. I got it from the library when I first read it, and you can read these 4 in any order you want. So you have to, like, you can't jump around fully. You have to read a whole section, but then once you finish it, you can jump to another one. And the way that you choose to read it will impact how, obviously, the whole book ends for you, and how it actually like feels as it's ending. And it's from 4 different time periods. I forget exactly when, because again, I've read this years ago, and it doesn't say on the title pages. Helpful, but it's something like Neolithic. Bit too far back there, like Neanderthal times up.
Imagine, like, I read a Neolithic book, and it was true to form.
That sounds like something I would say. But yeah, so like going back fully to like Neanderthals, like cavemen, back to that point in time, then to like pre-industrialization, and then like modern day, and then the future is roughly the timescale of these ones. And it's kind of like, I'm not entirely sure of what the question is, but there definitely is a question in there of like especially with like being able to read it in any order. It's like, how does the future impact the past? How does the present impact both the future, and how does the past impact the future? Like, how are all these different times impacting each other? And because you can read it in any order, you can make the very last section, way in the future, have the biggest impact on the caveman times of like the earliest humans. And it's like how, I guess it's like how life is intertwined, which sounds really bougie, but like, you know what I mean?
But I think it is. And I think that's a really interesting question, because I think we often think about how our actions are going to impact our future. And I guess unless you're going to look at it in a media form, you're never really going to be hit by the consequences of doing something with hindsight. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's really interesting, the fact they can write a story where there are stakes for the past with things that are happening in the future. That's quite interesting.
And it all revolves around this like spiral helixy structure. And it's like,
very DNA-like, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
it's all kind of intertwined and built together.
Yeah, it definitely has that aspect to it as well, 100%. So I'm trying to see what it says. Yeah, it doesn't really tell me too much on the book, unfortunately, to try and like give more descriptor. And like I said, read this like 5 years ago. But yeah, they all end up obsessed with helixes and spirals. And yeah, it's really interesting, and I need to reread it. And then the other one that it made me think of was The Empathy Problem by Gavin Extons. I've read 2 books by him. I also read The Universe versus Alex Woods. And whilst it's got very much the same vibe, I don't think I can class it as speculative, because there's no question. Like, there is a question present in this one, other than like a question that you could answer just in any contemporary book. And there's no real fantastical elements, but it has the same sort of vibe as a speculative one. Whereas this one, literally, there's a man who is an investment banker in London, and he gains empathy.
Wonderful.
That's the entire, like, what if someone who was like the worst of society actually gained empathy and had to deal with the consequences of that on what they have done and what they will do? And he like falls in love as well, and it's this whole thing of like how what he has done has impacted so many people. So I don't know why the egg one reminded me of these, because they do not have the same essence as the egg book, but like I feel like they have similar vibes.
I wonder if you were to read it, if you'd still agree that they gave those same vibes.
Like I feel like I would say that they were very different, but they would belong next to each other on a shelf.
Possibly. I think with what you said, those 2 or 3 or whatever, the 2 are very much big world problems, whereas like Isaac and the Egg is extremely internalized and extremely focused on one person. Like, it's literally questions for them rather than like the world in like a greater sense. I don't know, maybe the one about the investment banker having empathy, like that's quite an internalized struggle. But like obviously Isaac and the Egg is a literary fiction, like that's what it's classed as. Because I was Googling all sorts to figure out if it worked as speculative. But it does have the question of like, how can you cope when something so awful happens? Like, I don't want to give away that the awful thing happens, but like, it's like the lengths of where we will go, like as people. So I don't know, because it is literally all to do with him, and like to some extent some of the people around him who like try and reach out, but it's very much a very personal struggle rather than, you know, what if, I don't know, an atomic bomb went off outside your house kind of thing.
It's also making me think, like, not in that it's the same, and this one isn't even speculative, but in that, like, you could put it in a collection of books and they would work together, of like Piranesi.
Oh yeah. But I also think
it's not the same. That's not speculative, but like I feel like if you had that as a set, someone could read them all and get kind of the same kind of vibes, kind of.
See, I would argue that Piranesi is speculative.
I was going to say, can you not argue that Piranesi is?
Because at the end of the day, he is trapped in this maze that is both a physical thing and mental construct, because there are elements that he is in control of and elements he's not in control of. And he accepts everything he is given as fact. And it's only when he starts discovering and questioning things that the maze starts to unravel for him, and he's able to kind of have the cathartic ending that book has. But I think whilst it's not asking the audience or the world a specific question, he is questioning his reality. And therefore, I would argue that it is. Although it's very wrapped up in its kind of mythos and fantasy vibes, and the fact that for 78% of that book, I had no fucking idea what was going on.
I just I guess because I always saw it as like a mind blank. No, metaphor doesn't seem quite right, but I'm going with it, of like growing up. And like, so as a kid, you just thank you. As a kid, you just accept everything that's told to you, and as you grow up, you're like,
Yeah, it does have an air of the buildings roaming about it, but I think arguably it could be speculative as well.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say Piranesi is quite similar to Isaac and the Egg in the fact that the whole time you're questioning until the penny drops. And I do think I would argue that Piranesi is also speculative for the same reason I'd argue that Isaac and the Egg is, because although they are both grounded in some form of reality, whether it is like being questioned or not, they are both extremely twisty, windy, and you don't really know where you're going until you get there, kind of thing.
I really want to reread Piranesi with the knowledge of where it goes, because I feel like whilst I never understand people who say like, oh, I wish I could read this book again, as if I've never read it. That doesn't work in my brain. I don't understand why you want to do that, because I always get more out of a book when I reread it. This is one of the ones where I can kind of understand why you might want that kind of complete unknowing experience again. I can kind of get that, but at the same time, the amount that you can probably get out of it rereading it, knowing what that ending is.
I think the people that say that tend to be people who are very tied emotionally to the thing they're talking about. I don't think people, like, I found that when people have said that to me, it's about very specific films and franchises, because they want that eyes wide open wonder and experience that instead of just clouded in nostalgia. And I think sometimes nostalgia can mean that it doesn't work as well. I think it'd be really interesting to reread Piranesi, because it's neither wide-eyed wonder or nostalgia. It will just be, this is a mystery wrapped in an allegory, wrapped in a myth, trapped in a maze. And I think that in itself would be quite interesting to kind of dissect with the knowledge. Because like what did I read? I reread something recently and I really enjoyed rereading it. Or did I reread it or did I rewatch it? Let me have a look at my Goodreads. I feel like I reread something recently where I knew what the outcome was, and therefore, it was Death Note. I reread Death Note earlier, and there's a lot of like plot twist reveal things like that happen, because it's this kind of like thriller adventure mystery type thing, but it is a very Sherlock versus Moriarty thing where they're picking up clues and different things. And there's like bits where things are set up very early on that I then recognize upon my second reading and realize that yeah, that was right there the whole time. That was set up so that I could see that later. And also times when they get things wrong because they're positing clues. I quite liked that. So I think, yeah, I'm with you, Abby. I don't tend to wish that I had that wide-eyed nostalgia of rereading something from scratch. I like being able to reread things and going, oh, I got that reference, you know, and just kind of like those moments. That's definitely more
like the deeper things that that you might miss the first time round. Like I know that my partner Chris, he does not like rereading things, partly because he is, compared to us, a very slow reader. But part of that slowness is that he's incredibly thorough. And so he will read something, and most of the time for him, he doesn't need to read it again a second time round to get those references, because he's that like real in-depth reader where he's picked up on it the first time round and has got that link as soon as he's read it. Mind-boggling to me as I'm here whizzing through all my books. Like, what do you mean you what? So yeah, like for him, I guess yeah, if you're that sort of reader where you take in everything, I can see why you won't get anything from a reread, and so maybe you'd then enjoy the whole rereading, like reading for the first time thing. But as someone who does not take in every single aspect of a book at once, because I read too damn quickly to do that, and I don't have the patience to read slowly, no. Also, Olivia's here.
Hi.
And she says that she's never going to read Piranesi. Well, she didn't say that. I'm completely.
I would give it. I mean, it's considerably shorter. It's considerably shorter and bizarre. I'd be really interested to know what you thought, but I get why you would be not keen.
Right. See, Eleanor DNF'd Jonathan Strange, and she loved Piranesi. Yeah, it like I've not read Jonathan Strange, but I've heard from both of you what it's like and what your opinions are on it. And I think that you should give it a shot. If it ever kind of appears in your life, if you spot it, if you're at a library or a secondhand bookshop, I recommend picking it up. I was trying not to be presumptive, but at the same time. But yeah, I recommend not necessarily a second chance in terms of like in the future, like see how big the books are that she puts out, but just Piranesi. Like I don't think I'm ever going to try and pick up Jonathan Strange. I just don't think I can be asked.
No, to me, it's just there's too much going on there. Ooh, yeah.
Look, I know it's bad. I agree with you guys on this one. I just enjoyed the different gods that I got to find. Leave me alone with that. There was lots of different gods in American Gods, and I enjoyed learning about them. Let me have that. But with Addie LaRue, it's written badly. It's written awfully. I enjoyed it. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make Olivia say, oh, fine, fair enough. It's like when you reread Twilight, and it's bad, and you enjoy it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Guess what my cat is? Guess what my cat is?
How has it gone out the kitchen?
So I didn't realise Hamlet was in there as well. And Hamlet kicked up quite the fuss so that he could be let out. So I just thought I would.
Oh, he wants the treats.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And he's going to knock my teapot over so that he can get them. So, excuse me.
Get the teapot. Get the teapot. But yes, see, that's what Addie LaRue was. It was not, it's not a work of literature, okay? I enjoyed Twilight when I read it. I've not reread it since I was like 17 because it's bad in my memory already. I just leave the nostalgia. But it's the same vibes. Sometimes I just want to read trash, okay? Some people read fairy porn. I read Addie LaRue.
I can understand why people like Addie LaRue. I didn't think it was that great. But I can understand why people liked it. Like V. Schwab, people love V. Schwab's writing, right? And this was the one that is like crafted and the language is really flowery. So I can understand why people enjoyed it. I would not put Addie LaRue and Twilight into the same.
I would.
That's nice. I agree. I'm giving my opinion on it for a second, Hannah.
Just for a second.
I wouldn't put them in the same box, but I also think for me, Twilight has its place when I was a teenager. When I've reread them, I haven't enjoyed it because like there are so many things that I, as an adult, have gone, what the fuck? Why are we making this normal for young teenage girls to expect and make this normalized? Yeah, let's make stalking a sexy thing. Sure.
Is it not a sexy thing? I thought it was a sexy thing.
Let's put peeping toms into like being an acceptable version of society because it's all right. He loves her. Mate, you're over 100 years old. Gross. Grow up.
If he looked his age, I feel like we wouldn't find it as sexy, you know?
So with like Addie LaRue, it has its own issues, but they're very like, I don't know, I just wouldn't put it in the same box for me because like I can understand.
Imagine for a second you sold your soul because your girlfriend broke up with you. Your girlfriend that no one thought was a good idea you started dating in the first place. You sold your soul.
I mean,
so that everyone would fall in love with you.
Eleanor has summed this up of what I meant perfectly.
The thing is, Hannah, if I could sell my soul to a sexy demon, you know, I'm the first person I'd be like, hello.
No, but what if the demon's not like the Darkling? What if the demon's more like, you know, a Muppet?
Yeah, but the demon in Addie LaRue isn't, is it?
No, but what if he was? What if he looked like Gonzo from the Muppets?
I mean, I'd be able to hang out with Gonzo from the Muppets. That'd be fun.
I'm just waiting for him to tucker himself out. You done? You're done. I don't know why I find that so funny, but I really... Oh, he's going again. He's got again. What he doesn't realise is he's just shut the box because he's a silly banana.
Yeah, right. Eleanor's just said that she's not been able to get on board with any V.E. Schwab book. Honestly, same. And the highest I've been able to rate them has been like 3, other than Addie LaRue, which I gave 4 stars just because like I enjoyed the journey. Okay, it's trash. I enjoyed the journey. Leave me be. But other than that, I still haven't been able to like actually enjoy her writing. Like she seems like such a lovely person. I met her.
Oh, like the nicest little being you've ever met in your life. But
yes.
No, like I've done the Cassidy Blake trilogy, and that was fine.
Like I met her at a signing, and it like she was the whole reason I ended up going to the signing because she tweeted about it, and then someone else was like, "Oh, I have a spare ticket, but I don't know how it would work to give it to you." And V.E. Schwab was the one who was speaking with Waterstones to make sure I could get in, and I just walked up to the doors and was like, "Hi, I'm that girl from Twitter," and got to go to the signing.
I'm that girl from Twitter.
I was like, "Hi," it's like, and she's so lovely. And it bothers me so deeply that like someone who obviously it's completely parasocial, she could be awful, I don't know, but she seems really lovely. And I can't get into her books and it bothers me deeply. Like Gallant, the concept for Gallant is fantastic. 3 stars.
No, Gallant wasn't good. But then I don't think the Dark Shadow Magic books were that great anyway. Like I've read the first one. I wasn't planning on reading the trilogy, but for Waypoint, Full Moon box, Hannah gave me Fragile Threads of Power. So I was like, well, I guess I'm reading this trilogy now, and I will.
I got you a spare thing because I couldn't remember if that was the series you liked or not. And when you said it wasn't, I said, that's fine, we can swap it for something else.
Yeah, I'm joking.
You're the one that's...
It is very nice, and I will read it. But I don't think V. Schwab does anything new. Or at least... Oh, hello, we're back onto Horatio. Oh, my God, cat. But I don't know. The thing is, I feel okay not enjoying V. Schwab books because she has a legion of fans.
What I don't agree with is when authors like Mark Lawrence send their fans to bully the V. Schwab online.
Yeah, but then I don't agree with anyone sending the other people.
Yeah,
but I just think
it's just pathetic.
I don't need to enjoy her books, you know.
DNF did not finish. It's where you stop reading a book before you reach the end and you just decide you're never going to pick it up again. There are more technicalities. Me and Olivia both like temporarily DNF some books. But yeah, usually DNF is just you decide that you're never reading anymore. For example...
It's more than just pausing it. It's a case of I'm done.
Yeah. I was going to try and grab one quickly and then realised none are within grabbing reach because I've reorganised my bookshelves. For example, Eleanor, who DNF'd halfway through book 2 of A Dark Shade of Magic, gave them to me. because I was like, oh, I'll try them. I'm still haven't picked them up. One day. I just want to try book 2 to see if this is a continuing theme, because again, this is the problem with B.E. Schwab. Her concepts are fantastic. For me personally, her concepts are amazing. The concept of Gallant, I need someone else to steal the concept and write it, because fantastic. The concept of A Dark Shade of Magic, love it. But her execution just really doesn't sit with me, and it really disappoints me.
There were some bits of Gallant I really enjoyed. Like, there were certain things about it I really liked. But as a whole story, I think it could have been longer. Like, it's a novella. Like, at the end of the day, Gallant is so short. And I wanted more out of the story. But, like, I loved the idea of, like, this ghost world, essentially. Like, a ghost realm. And, like, the threat of that. And I never felt the true threat of it, because it never got put through properly. I don't know.
I always thought Gallant should have been a series.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't have been as short as it was. I have, whatever it's called, This Savage Song, and I hope that that is the exception, because I love musical magic and fantasy. Like, that's something that always seems to work well for me, so I'm really hoping that's going to be the exception to the rule for me. Horatio is very much the star of the show, or is that Horatio?
No, that's Horatio. Hamlet is the black and white one. Hamlet is being a very good boy, because he is just sitting and staring at me and waiting for me to get more biscuits out. Whereas Horatio is trying to work out, can he get to the biscuit? That's Blue. Hey, Blue. Precious baby boy. No, Horatio is trying to work out if he can go round Zach and come out the other side. He's decided that's not possible, so he's going to jump up again. But I don't have any biscuits left. That's it. They're all gone.
We're moving past this. Olivia, we're not going back to it.
Actually, Olivia, I would just say, if Bella did sell her soul, Edward wouldn't have so much of a fucking bitch-ass problem with her becoming a vampire, because the reason he doesn't want her to become a vampire is because he wants her to have a soul. Oh, I'm so tortured.
Which sounds like utter hypocrisy to me, but...
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Abby, I'm totally ignoring what you said about not going back to Twilight, because I
was going to go find my comment again where I said that I'd lost control of my own live stream.
What do you expect? It's us. Like, it's us three. We're not gonna just accept.
You only got the Chaos Demons. You haven't got Hannah, who is very kind and patient and quiet. You haven't got Celine, who's got better places to be, so therefore we'll call you on it. They're not even over there anymore. They're here. They're right here. Don't you dare go on that bookcase.
Okay, Blue's ears are twitching because he can hear you.
That was your teacher voice?
Well, I'm pissed. Because he just looks at me. He's just creeping about. They're not even up there. They're right here. Come on.
Well, you know what? While you bother the cat, why don't you tell, by attracting the cat, why don't you tell us about your speculative book, Hannah?
So, I read 2 things, both by audiobook. So I don't.
This is just because of the cat. I'm not just focusing her because she's talking.
Fine. You know what? We'll put that there.
Perfect. Carry on.
Do you want to face this way so people can see you? Okay, I read The Seep by Chaina Porter, and I read Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin. Which would you like to hear about first?
I didn't realise Little Eyes could have worked for this. I have that. God damn it. What's occurring is the cats are attacking the treats whilst we're attempting to talk about books and really failing. Olivia says Little Eyes, so we'll go with Little Eyes.
Little Eyes. So, Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin. This was a book that was recommended to me by my friend Sean, who got it in when it first came in, because it was an award winner, but I cannot for the life of me remember which award it was. I can't remember if it was a short story award, the Costa or Booker or something like that. But essentially, Little Eyes is about these little creatures that are essentially like little robots that...
Wow, Horatio, you really want those treats, huh?
He's got a hole in the lid.
Wow.
Absolute vicious monster. You think I never fed him? This is
hole in the lid! The little shit!
To be fair, he's like worn away loads of the paint on the side as well, which is quite funny. Yeah, so basically there are these little creatures. They come in different sizes. Can I interest anyone in a bit of plastic that he's just chewed off the side? The bit that says open. They come in like different sizes. So you've got a panda, a rabbit, a little crow, things like that. And basically, they're like Furbies. In fact, there are these little automaton. Don't bite me, you dickhead. These little automaton. I'm just going to throw in some more. This is an addiction. I'm worried about you.
Oh, so he's licking you now.
Yeah, because I've got treats in my hand.
Oh, I know. I know why he's licking you, Hannah. I'm just saying.
He literally just picked up 5 in one mouthful. You're a pig. All right, go on. Off you pop.
Like, no, I want the box.
Go on. Off you go. There we go. Right. See, the thing is now he's got to fight with Hamlet for them, so that's why he wants the ones from the box. There you go. There's an unnecessary amount there. There's going to be none of these left by the end of this live show. No. Okay, so they come in different creatures. They're like Furbies, but different people control them. So you are either an owner or you're an inhabitor, right? Oh, Furbies are evil incarnate. I agree. So say, for example, you're in Abu Dhabi and you log in and you sign up to be one of these creatures. You get to watch through cameras through this creature's eyes. You get to respond through a noise that it makes. And you get to like just live as this creature through this app whilst someone has it just living in their house. And that's just normal.
Why would anyone say yes?
So this is the thing. So they become like really popular, and I can completely believe it because the way it's written is very clever because it makes it sound like, you know, when everyone gets like the newest phone or like the newest toy or everyone's got to have the newest thing. You know when like Roombas were suddenly everywhere, everyone needed a Roomba. It's very like that. It's very kind of like they get caught up on this thing. But the thing that makes them really clever and really kind of a great way of making money, but also like an empathy thing, is if something happens to the creature and the creature dies, if it loses battery, that connection is killed off forever. And if someone logs out, that connection is lost forever. So say, for example, if you don't put it on its little stand to get charged throughout the night and it dies, it just dies. If someone's bored of watching how you live your life and they just disconnect, you've spent £200 on this thing that's never going to wake up again. And some people never know why that happens. And other people are able to communicate through that. Like some people in the book share phone numbers with each other and like text each other. Some of them go on little adventures and kind of like explore. But there are a couple of stories. There are 2 in particular that I found really hard to read. Yeah, kind of like Ring cameras, except I have no idea who's on the other side of my Ring camera. Yeah. So for the most part, it's kind of like a harmless thing, but obviously a lot of these stories, they are insidious, and like the whole time it's a very insidious thing. And it kind of questions like how far are people willing to go when it's anonymous. So one story, this woman, her husband's an artist, and he starts like kind of collecting these things and uses what happens to them as their art piece. And there's a really climactic scene at the very, very end where you see what she has been doing to her thing. And because she's unhappy, she is treating this thing worse and worse, knowing that whoever is behind the screen is siding with her husband over her. And it becomes this like whole thing where she kind of becomes outed at his art exhibition with how she's been treating this thing. There's another one where this woman is in her 70s and she is in this house with this young woman who has a rabbit and treats this rabbit like it's her pet and really cares about it. But she has this really horrible boyfriend who is stealing money from her and just like not very nice. Isn't abusive, but is just like lazy and just not very nice. Anyway, she finds out who he is and phones him and says that he's got to be like nicer to this person. But because she doesn't remember to put like 1471 beforehand, he now has her number and he starts harassing her and he disrupts their relationship and kind of like ruins it. And she finds that actually she really needed that parasocial relationship because she was so lonely. that actually she really needed it. And like there's loads of discussions about how, you know how like they say like that they should put stray pets from homes into old people's homes because they need, like, both of them need the companionship, right? And there's these charities that could work together. Would they actually work together? And certainly would they work if it was kind of like another person behind the thing. The really, really insidious one is this man has this little duck that this little like vole that he's like hanging out with, that really wants to be there when he puts his son to bed, and like is like for him, he very much sees it as his friend. All of his friends are like, this is creepy. The wife gets involved, and he has this like this parasocial relationship with this creature, knowing there's a human being behind it. And it becomes really insidious really quickly because of the relationship, not only that he has with the vole, but the relationship the vole has with the guy's son. And it's weird. So a really, really interesting, and because like when I first picked it up, I thought it was a collection of short stories. It isn't. It's a lot of different perspectives. Some of them we return to on multiple occasions. Some of them we only see once or twice. But the whole thing is really interesting because, I mean, yes, it was massively insidious. It was super, super creepy. I picked it up specifically for Speculative because I needed a book that had a body part in the title. And I just happened to stumble across it on Scribd, recognized that Sean had liked it. I thought I would give it a go. So it is not something that I would have actively picked up, but it is something that I have put on my list to recommend to you, Eleanor and Olivia, for Waypoint books. One, because it's short, like I think it's like barely 200 pages. Two, the writing style is really interesting. What I really liked is that all of the different people are from like around the world. So we just find out how many pages it is.
Well, I mean, you got the vibes right straight away because I already own it and Olivia has already read it. Eleanor has already read it. So you've got the vibes, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's only 258 pages. It's not long at all. Really, really creepy. But there are some really heartwarming moments as well. There's some really I felt genuinely really sorry for the older lady who is just trying to protect this young girl. And she gets harassed something chronic by this guy. And I just felt really sorry for her. And she doesn't really have anyone else. But again, there's this really weird question of how comfortable people are having them in their homes versus being in the creature. Because at one point she gets gifted a little creature. So one is now living in her house. And she realizes from having been in one of the creatures that actually she doesn't like it. She doesn't like the idea that someone's just in her house watching her be vulnerable. Was really interesting. And I think the kind of question it poses is about empathy, security, privacy, technology, like all of these different things, and how in a modern world we are really quite content to give up our privacy and empathy for the sake of new technology and having the latest big thing. And the fact that these things are so expensive. And one guy, he is basically logging into he's got multiple platforms, so he multiple iPads. He will basically buy an iPad, log into one of these creatures, collect loads of information about where the creature is, who they're watching, whatever, and then he will sell that iPad with that login info so that someone can play as that creature, because you have no idea where you're going to end up. So it's a way of he can monetize that. And his is a really interesting story because he sees into lots of different situations. But for him, it's all about the monetary capitalist gain of it. It's wild. And it's quite impressive to fit all of that in.
I was like, why the hell? I thought you were going to be like, oh, yes, sell the information. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, actually, whilst it is a very capitalist way of thinking, it's not really any more creepy than the concept in and of itself. It just gives people a choice before they get there.
Yeah.
That's been bumped up my TBR. That's now a lot higher up my physical TBR than it had been.
Yeah. And I think that's what I found so insidious about it, was the fact that it felt it felt like it could be in the next few years, especially because of the way we respond to technology. Like, you think, like, round about now, obviously PlayStation and Xbox will be releasing all their new games in the next 3 weeks because it's just in time for Christmas, and how quickly they will sell out. And if someone comes out with a new console or something, how quickly that gets taken up. If you had the opportunity to have something like that would sell so quickly. It's really, really creepy. Really creepy.
It gives like Black Mirror vibes.
Yes. Yeah. I would absolutely say that this would make a great Black Mirror episode.
Well, they kind of did it with the newest series, didn't they? With the one with the little like Furby-like creatures. In the newest series, is it the one with Miley Cyrus in it? I feel like there was one with Miley Cyrus in it.
Maybe.
And it was really fucking weird, and it was very similar. I can't exactly remember if it was other people. But that was what immediately made me think of. But I do want to read that book now. So
yeah.
I guess like with the Furbies, people already like personify things. Like, for God's sake, I'll personify this, and there's nothing inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like I could see why then people would end up, when there's a human inside of it, just still seeing it as this.
Yeah, well, like we are hardwired to empathize and
socialize,
personify things. I can't remember who it is. I think it's either Daniel Sloss or Dara O'Brien, and I only know it'll be one of those two because they're the stand-ups that I've been watching on YouTube recently. But there's a bit where they talk about this like poor kid or whatever, and then they pretend to like drop kick it, or like it's ice cream, or like something happens, like its ice cream falls over, like it hurts itself, whatever. And he's like, it's okay, guys, it's not real. Like, but the idea is that like when you spell the story, it does make people automatically want to engage in that way, which I think is very, very interesting. So I thought that I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really clever. I thought the ending, I wanted more of it. It didn't feel finished, but maybe that's on purpose. Yeah, I'd be really interested to know what both of you thought, because actually I would absolutely recommend it to both of you.
I will have to see. Is Daniel Sloss the name of the one that stood up against Russell Brand? I like him. I've actually seen somehow I've seen a fair bit of like the UK comedy content, you know, stuff that's been like Mock of the Week and all of that. And somehow I'd missed Daniel Sloss, and now that I've actually been seeing his content, like I actually like his comedy as well.
He did loads of things in America. When he was like 17, he came onto the scene when he was like 17, and he was in the UK quite a lot. But then he spent like a good 5 or 6 years touring around America. But obviously then since COVID, he's got married and is more touring in the UK at the moment. I'm pissed. Sorry, my cat is literally about to climb up into that fucking bookcase again. He did some stand-up at Bristol, and I was meant to be going and seeing it with a friend, and then the night of, she bailed, so I didn't get to go and see it, and I was very upset. I'd love to see him live. I would love to see him live.
You could have went without them.
No, it was their, like, we'd paid for the tickets together. Like, I paid them for the ticket, but it was on their thing. Yeah.
Rude.
And I was also not emotionally stable enough to go to things on my own back then. Like, I was, I have to go with people to things.
Yeah. Fair. Right.
So the other one, the Seep.
The Seep. It's right there.
Oh yes, I just see Seep.
Seep.
Yeah. So, have you read it?
Yes, that's my red shelf. Well,
did you like it?
Yes. I'm assuming from that question that you didn't.
I gave it 3. I thought it was really well written. It didn't push anything far enough for me. I thought all of the conversations were very gentle. And I think the problem was I read Little Eyes first. So the Seep, basically, the Seep is an alien organism that arrives on Earth and then embodies people. Like, it kind of is consumed by them and connects them. And it means that you're connected to everything all of the time, and you feel empathy on this really profound level. So you drink wine and you can taste the grapes, and you can taste the water that fed the vine, and you can take, like, you are part of all of this. And it helps solve world hunger, and it helps like cure diseases and this, that, and the other. But the main but it also, because it connects everything, it means that you can adapt and change yourself to suit. And the main character is a trans woman who has been in a lesbian relationship, and her partner, who she's been with for like 15 years at this point, decides they want to be reborn. They want to start with completely new memories, and they basically get themselves adopted, and then the seep will turn them into a baby. And they want to start their whole life again. And the main character really struggles with this, because essentially from where they're standing, they've already fought really hard to become the person that they are.
Why would you want that? Like, oh my god, sorry.
Her argument is that she can choose her parents, and maybe she can grow up without the trauma that she had, and being so connected with everything, growing up with the seep in the world already will give her a better life, and maybe her personality will be different, and maybe she can do more things and other things that she could ever hope to do. And the thing is, like, because everything is just kind of provided, no one has to work. People can kind of just ingratiate themselves with their art or whatever, and it does kind of create this utopia. But the main character is very much on the outskirts of it, because she doesn't want it, doesn't need it, has already worked really hard to be the person that she is, and likes who she is without the seep. And that's quite difficult. There is this colony that lives on the outside that actively refuses to engage with the seep. And basically the main character adopts this young man or starts living with this young man who's been kicked out of that colony. So he's experiencing the seep for the first time. But it is very kind of chameleon-esque. It can adapt to suit. And again, I just felt like it wasn't really going anywhere. It didn't really do anything, and it didn't question anything enough for me. It was all very introspective. It was very focused on grief, which is not a bad thing, but it's not what I was expecting it to be. I think I was expecting it to be more of a critical analysis, again, of empathy, of the idea of adapting a certain thing. Like, there's one bit that I thought was really interesting, and again, I just wanted to see it pushed more.
I think I know what you're going to say.
There is a young man who, is that what you thought I was going to say? There is a young man who has had his face adapted to look like the first man he ever fell in love with, who has passed away, who's died, who is a man of color. And the
man was originally white.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the main character has an issue with this, because he's not just taken someone else's identity, he's appropriated their culture as well. Like, people talk to him about his culture, empathizing with him, and it doesn't belong to him. And there's like times when the main character like really wants to like call him out for it, but knows that she will be massively outnumbered, because they can all communicate and empathize with each other on such a deep and profound level. She will just be left out, and it's so bizarre. And I was like, nah, I fucking would have done it anyway. Like, I would have called that out anyway. It was really bizarre. Like, but then the thing is, Lizzie and I were talking about this earlier today, that it has got to a point where sometimes I'm like, I don't know if we're hypersensitive to stuff because we're on the internet, just chronically on the internet. So it was really interesting to see this kind of gentle analysis of things like that. But I think for me, it was just too gentle. Yeah, to be fair, the whole book is weird. And it's like treated like a drug as well. Like, it heightens things. It makes them feel euphoric.
I was expecting a whole lot more from the race discussion, because I believe the author themselves is trans, and that is broached as like some people then do transition into female bodies or male bodies, whichever way they want to go, or neither. And I feel like that would have been like a great space in this book to kind of talk about the difference between being transgender, whether that means becoming non-binary male or female, or people who claim that they're transracial, which is not a thing because of the community and the identity that comes from purely just being one skin color or another. Like, I walk into a room looking exactly like this, and I will be perceived in one way. You can do everything the same to me, same hair, same clothes, same attitude, same height, same weight, same gender. Put me into a room as a different race, and I will be perceived completely differently. Like I don't know. It's like it would have been a great place to kind of discuss that difference.
Thing is, it was balancing a lot. It was balancing a lot of different things. And I think because of that, like I said, it handled it very delicately and very gently. And it was very kind of considerate of the things that it was dealing with. All valid, all great. I just think as a concept, it had so much capacity to push things a little bit further. There was no confrontation. There was no catharsis. Nothing changes. She doesn't end the book by kind of getting over her grief. There's a really interesting bit where she's arguing because she's not been maintaining her lawn or her house. She's let her house kind of run down because she's alone. She's grieving the loss of her wife because as far as she's concerned, her wife is dead. Her wife is now living in Paris as a baby. Like, she doesn't exist anymore. She won't grow up with their memories. She won't grow up with the personality traits that she's loved. So she is mourning a loss. And this guy rocks up and is like, right, you either have to sort out your front garden or we will ask you to leave. And she's like, well, it's my house. And he's like, property doesn't exist anymore. This belongs to everybody. And this is a really nice big house that would actually suit 3 or 4 people. And you are keeping it all for yourself. And that's not how the seep works. And it's a very kind of socialist, communist alien, which is good because, usually they're like totalitarian and like scary. This one isn't. It's very gentle and it's very nice to everybody, but it is ultimately an authority. And, even when she's like, okay, fine, I'll sort it. And he's like, we could help. It will only take a couple of days if you get more hands on board. Like, everyone around here wants the best for you. But fundamentally, he's turned up because he's on neighborhood watch and this doesn't look as appealing as everyone else's houses do, So it is really interesting, but weird and not weird enough, if that makes sense.
I wish it had been bigger. I would love like a full... I would love if this ended up getting extended into like a series. But like just an actual full-size book rather than a novella. I feel like it would have the space to actually properly explore the topics that Porter brings up. Yeah. Rather than
I think it should have been a short... I have the opposite opinion. I think it should have been a short story in a collection of other speculative things. I feel like in hindsight, there was no plot. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. No one grew. So I feel like I would have been quite happy for it to be 2,000 words, but part of something else. Yeah.
Yeah, the aliens, like, whilst they are a main point of the plot, are not a main point of the book.
No.
Like, which is a weird thing to say, but, like, they are very much, even though, like, they are integrated into everything, the actual aliens themselves are very much separate from everything that's happening, even though at the same time, nothing that is happening could be happening without their presence. But yeah, like, they don't go into the aliens at all. That's not like a thing that's like really emphasized. Like, you don't really hear too much about any of the details of like their incursion, anything like that. Like, everything's just like, yeah, it was fine. Some people didn't like it, so the seep went, okay, you don't have to. Which, it is quite good for an authoritarian alien creature. Like, I'll take it, but like, what more details? But no. So yeah, it either needed to go shorter or bigger. It was the wrong size. But yes, so that was both the books that you read?
Yes. Yeah.
I do have a question because I have not read it. The racial aspect of it, you said it was just sort of like discussed, but nothing, you didn't really go into it. Do you think it's possible that, although I don't really see the point of having it in if it was just there as like this thing happened, but I'm not actually going to discuss the... Oh, God, my brain is fucking gone.
I'm watching you struggle and I'm trying to work out what the question's going to be.
I know what my question is, but I've noticed a trend that a lot of LGBTQ plus authors recently bring up race, and it's done really clunkily, and it's
Oh
also
no, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. So obviously, like we've been talking before about certain books where they think because they're LGBT authors and they've got great LGBT rep, that the racial rep it gets a pass, even if it's things that are slightly racist. Like there's been quite
I'm
a
really
few.
glad you understood where I was going.
Yeah. No, I know exactly where you're going. No, I know exactly where you're going.
Sorry, I'm so tired.
No, you're fine. I would argue that this is not the same as that, because this isn't just a case of like, it's not LGBT characters or people written by an LGBT author treating someone poorly. And one of the things that I found really interesting and nuanced about this conversation is the guy justifies it by saying, but I loved him. And every time I look in the mirror, I get to see his face. And she's like, that's not a good enough reason to steal his identity. Like, we are very much, she is positioned to side with the audience going, that is wrong. That's not, we're not living in a gray area here. That is wrong. And she doesn't condone that behavior at all. The only kind of thing for me is, there's a phrase in filmmaking known as a lamplighting, where they will kind of highlight an issue, but never really explore why it's bad or who it affects or how you can rectify it. I don't think this is lamplighting. I don't think this is going, this is a thing that people do and then moving on, right? I think this is a thing where the author makes it very clear where they stand on those racial politics. They are not okay with cultural appropriation of any kind, whether it's transracialism or wearing something you shouldn't be wearing because of the cultural relevance of it, you know?
Like Native American headdress for Halloween.
Yes. Yeah. My culture is not a Halloween costume, right? So like things like that. Yes, absolutely. I mean, like even to a certain extent, like the idea of wearing like a sombrero and a mustache is like it's a stereotype. It's cultural appropriation. I didn't walk away from that book going, oh well, I guess I don't know what side of the fence they sit on. It was more just a case of there is no moment where he is confronted with the things that he's done. There's no moment where he has to meet the expectations of the reader. And there's quite a few instances of different things, whether it's classism or elitism or anything like that, where those people just kind of are. They just kind of do. And it's not, but that's because the character herself or themselves is in a position where they cannot do anything about it. And therefore the audience does kind of just accept that, okay, well, this is the norm. This is how the world works, kind of thing. And the character isn't punished for it because the main character can't do anything about it, as opposed to we as an audience recognize it as a bad thing. So
okay, cool, thank you. It's just I've noticed a trend, so I wanted to make sure that this wasn't on that trend.
Yeah, no, this one, it doesn't, it handles it well. It handles the topic well in terms of what the topic is about and what we're discussing, but it needs to go into more depth to make the book work well around this topic. Up to themselves, I personally don't think did anything bad. It's just that we wanted more depth. Same with some of the LGBTQ plus representation, where it's not bad. The representation is done great, but you need to go into more depth. It's the same as the whole book, really.
Yeah,
we're not saying that like you shouldn't pick it up. It's just that we're disappointed by some of it. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think I'd like it?
Yes, I do. One, because it's short. I think you'd burn through it really quickly. Two, it's just, I feel like it's weird enough to keep your interest, but probably gentle enough for where your head is at reading wise at the moment anyway. Like it's nice and short. I think it reads like a sci-fi. So I think that will be in its favor. And I think the fact that it has the trans and LGBT rep, I think it will really resonate with you as well anyway. Like, so yeah, for those 4 reasons, I think you should read it.
And ironically, with the fact that you are like so overworked and therefore so tired right now, the fact that it doesn't go into what me and Hannah are saying is enough depth is probably, in terms of you reading it for enjoyment, a fairly good thing, because we both know how well versed you already are on these topics. So at least I'm assuming, Hannah, you were the same, where you're reading it and you're like, you're thinking of all the different routes that it already could have gone down. I didn't need this for the education. I just wanted it for the representation.
Yes.
And it has the rep, but I wanted the rep to be extended.
Yeah.
And
but it is a book that I will recommend. Like, considering I don't tend to keep 3 stars, I'm tempted to get a copy because I did it as an audiobook. I did both of them as an audiobook. I think I'm tempted to get it in as a copy so that I can use it in videos to recommend, because actually it does tick off so many great rep things. Because I think the LGBT, even to a certain extent, the way it looks at BIPOC representation, obviously it's not a BIPOC author, things like that are really well done. But it's for me, it was a little too gentle. It was a little too caught in its own feelings. But then, to be fair, at the moment, I don't know what I'm in the mood to read, so I'm just picking up everything just in case. So,
well, Hannah, I would like both, please.
Okay.
So if you can get me a copy, you can always use my copy.
Will do.
Apologies for the weird looks. Chris is... Oh, he's laughing. Okay, that's good. Chris's American football game has started. Earlier than usual for us, because our clocks have changed and Americans hasn't yet. And he was screaming. So I was trying to figure out if it was like, yay, we scored, or if it was, what the fuck was that? So
I thank you for reminding me. I figured out why I'm so tired, because I feel like it's 10 instead of 9. Right. Okay. I understand what's happening.
You had to work an extra hour last night.
Yeah, don't fucking remind me. I saw the clocks turn to 2 and then it was 1 a.m. again. And I was like, fuck my life.
Did you tell me you got paid for that extra hour?
Yeah.
It's not a real hour.
Oh, I would have. If you said that, I would have been getting on the train.
No, one of the guys at work, because afterwards we do like a little wrap up of the weekend, like how much money we made and all sorts of like sales figures and stuff. This was at 5 o'clock in the morning. I just wanted to go home, but hey, this is just what we do. Someone was like, so are we putting on our clock out that it's like 4 o'clock, or are we putting 5 o'clock? Sorry, no, it was 6 o'clock and not 5 o'clock. And my boss was like, no, it's all right. I'm going to manually make sure you've all got the 7-hour pay that you're entitled to. Because all of us would be kicking off if we're not paid for that extra hour. Because it was
also
hard.
I think that would be illegal.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions for Hannah?
I don't think so. Other than I want the copies. So.
Other than give me.
Please, if you want the copies yourselves, go on to Waypoint Books. Woo! That's my plug.
Eleanor, I told you that would happen.
Yeah, that was inevitable.
Okay, so in terms of what I read that's speculative, technically, I think I could make 2 of the books I've read count. I'm only going to talk about one, but I'll mention them both. The one I'm not going to go into is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which I feel like could, like the whole fantasy question asked, what would happen if a girl disguised themselves as a boy and tried to live that life in, like, what century is this? 13th century China?
Yeah,
12th century. 1300s China. So I feel like that counts in terms of, like, it answers the question. But the one I'm going to go with, also just for the record, I enjoyed this, and even though I was expecting it, the fisting scene came out of nowhere.
It's so, like, it just starts a chapter, doesn't it? It's like, it's one of those things where, like...
Not even that. As in, it starts the chapter. 100%, you're correct. That is already like, oh, wow, okay. It's one of the only sex scenes in the entire book. I'm there like, oh, okay.
Sex scene, right?
I think so, yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the fisting scene I have been forewarned about, right at the end, by the way. In like the last 12th of the book. And then I'm already, like, I think I'm already experiencing the fisting scene. And then it goes even harder. And I'm like, what the fuck? That was an experience. Also, listening to it by audiobook.
Wild,
whilst
right?
working.
Yeah.
Was very weird. I'm there clicking on maps like, nah. I don't like this. These should be separate.
That's so funny.
But the book I'm actually going to talk about properly is When Women Became? I keep calling it that. When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This was sent to me by Olivia, actually. when she decided to unhaul it. I can't remember if she read it, if she has another copy, or if she just decided, because her TBR is scarily huge and she's currently competing with Hannah to make it smaller.
And losing.
Just rub it into the poor woman, why don't you? But yes, I don't know whether she's going to read this. I think she should. So this, the question for this one is fairly obvious. It's what if women were dragons? There's your question. But so what it actually does is it's set in the United States, and they talk about the mass dragoning of, I think it's 1955. So that gives you kind of the social era that it's in. It's post-war, but pre-modern feminism. And it talks about these women who all on one day at like one point in time just turn into dragons. It was already a thing that had happened. It wasn't like unknown. It wasn't as if it happened now to like in real life and we're all like, what the fuck? Like people had been turning into dragons for centuries, for all of time, but it was always swept under the rug and it was always isolated incidents. And this is too big to be like swept under the rug, but everyone essentially, at least in the US, completely based in the US, just pretends that it never happened. You don't speak about it. If you had someone that dragoned, like if your mum dragoned, no, she didn't. You don't have a mother. And it talks, like the whole book is kind of about how that impacts the people left behind. And also the fact that there are still people who want to dragon. So dragoning is essentially portrayed kind of like pushing off the patriarchy. And so going against the patriarchy and going against what that kind of, especially at that time in the 50s, which I think everyone can agree the patriarchy was strong, kind of pushing off the societal norms and being able to actually just be yourself without worrying. And being a dragon, you're big, you're bulletproof, literally. The US military tries to shoot them. You're big, you're bulletproof, you can cause damage, you can set fire to things, and so people can't stop you from just being yourself. You have that physical power that a lot of women, especially in the 50s, did not have. And so it discusses that aspect as well as then what happens to those who are left behind, and who have to try and live with this and try and live, kids trying to live with adults who've been through this. So we follow a young woman, a girl at the start, whose aunt is the one who dragons. And so she then suddenly has a little sister. She's always had a little sister, and she's never had an aunt, because you have to pretend it never happened. But her dad won't actually speak to or acknowledge the little sister, really, because it's not his kid, and he's one of those patriarchal, it's not my blood, so I'm not caring for it kind of people. And so it's kind of the trauma of her growing up with that and having to try and deal with that, and having her mum also going through chronic illness and going through cancer. And then what happens when her mum passes away and she has no women in the family because one of the women chose to go be herself. And it's kind of that discussion of staying with the family and staying with people and caring for them and helping people who need your help versus being true to yourself. And like at the end, it kind of tries to come full circle in a way. And I'm describing this really poorly. Really badly. What's the synopsis? Let's see. When hundreds of thousands of ordinary women sprout wings, scales, and talons and take to the skies in a blaze of fire and fury, 8-year-old Alex Green is one of those left behind, and no one will talk about what happened. Best forgotten, everyone says. But Alex can't forget, nor does she want to. As Alex grows into a fiercely independent teenager, she must face the consequences of the mass dragoning, a society closing in on itself, a mother more protected than ever, and watching her beloved cousin Beatrice becoming dangerously obsessed with the forbidden. And it's also covers like lesbian relationships. It covers transgender individuals. They are actually actively mentioned in here. That's one thing I had been worried about because I knew it was really feminist. And so before going in, I was concerned, like, oh, are they going to talk about these women transforming into dragons and not bring up the concept of transgender people? And they do. They also have some boys and men who still are boys and are men and who dragon, but they also have people who were already identifying as trans women and are then dragoning. and it's mentioned in they have little at the end of some chapters they'll have a little scientific article about what's happening, and so it's kind of mentioned in there oh yeah, we weren't sure what was going to happen with transgender individuals, but they're dragoning too. Guess they really are women. And it's just okay, cool. And the story just is now you know that, and just goes from there, which I'm very glad that it did that.
That's interesting because I know obviously you unhauled the power to me. That was one of Keris's main criticisms, obviously in general, but when we discussed it, is the fact that obviously it posits this thing that happens to women, and it is a very much a gendered binary of it happens to women and it doesn't happen to men, and doesn't discuss what would happen for non-binaries or transitioning people. So it's interesting that it's we don't worry, we've thought about the lore of this as well.
Yeah, I remember reading The Power, and at the time, truthfully, I didn't think any more on it.
No, neither did
I, in my personal life, until more recently, I haven't had any transgender people in my life until the past 2 or 3 years, and I read this 5-6 years ago, The Power. And it wasn't something that was as much in the public conscience. And so I feel from what I've seen of the author, I feel the author of The Power, Naomi Alderman, would be more likely to include a branch of that now. But it was probably the same for her in that it wasn't as much in the social consciousness and it hadn't impacted her specifically, so she didn't think to add it.
I get why it wasn't included. Yeah. I think it's interesting that The Power is not that old, but the idea that The Power didn't do it for those reasons, and When Women Were Dragons has for those reasons.
But then this one is a 2022, 2023.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But it's changed a lot in the past few years, which is good.
There are so many books which are very binary in the fact that it's either male or female politics are the main crux to the whole book. Mother Made a Monster is all about female politics, and there's no trans rep in that either, but it's one of those newer books where you kind of expect there to be, and thinking about it, there are loads of newer books that seem to only have male or female issues positive without having any other rep in, and it's super interesting that that book, which is a brand new release, has, because so many authors just don't, and I guess a lot of authors don't necessarily want to touch it because if they're not own voices, they don't know if they have the right to. It's one of those really interesting, do we want rep in there just for representation's sake, or do we want it to be actually good, well thought out, own voices rep? So I think that is also another reasoning that it's an interesting discussion point. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm completely not with it, and I'm trying to...
You've been doing really well.
As far as it's been announced, and I don't see anything that states that Kelly Barnhill is anything other than a cisgender woman. And so if she is, which is what she's presenting as, so I'm going to assume so, I think that the way that she did it then was done quite well, because having someone who is not trans writing trans voices is inherently more difficult, because you want to try and make it accurate, and you can't if you haven't lived it without immense research, almost too much research to just write a book. And so I feel this method of kind of having it included in some of these little scientific articles that are at the end of some of the chapters, so that it's been mentioned, it's in there, and it's not focused on because the characters that we are focusing on don't have that happen to them. But it's just mentioned as a side thing. It's not focused on. It's not made a big deal of. And I feel that was a good way of her trying to incorporate that in there, versus the author of Vox, who I did at first a TikTok about, and then I re-uploaded my TikTok onto YouTube Shorts, and the author, despite me not tagging her, found it. And Vox is one of those male versus female power stories. And it turns out that she, I'm assuming, unfortunately, a fair number of people who do write those stories, is a massive transphobe.
Mm-hmm.
And so she
but very bad at taking criticism as well.
Yeah, so bad with criticism.
But also, reviews aren't for authors; they're for other readers.
Well, yeah, I didn't tag her because it wasn't positive. I wasn't out here trying to say to her, "Oi, bitch, why haven't you done?"
Even if you had, even if you had, since when is that her problem? Just live your life and move on. Like,
but like
yeah.
I didn't even tag her. I don't think I even put her name in the tags. I might put the book title, but like I don't think
Look,
I even
it's
put
her
name in the
fault
tags,
for
and she
Googling
found it.
herself. Like,
Yeah, like either that or someone sent it to her and she chose to then go and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was not trying to reach her. I was trying to reach other readers.
No, to be fair, like
yeah,
I gave a 1-star review on NetGalley once, and the author found my Goodreads and rated all of the books that I've written or that are on there, the short stories and things, as a 1-star in retaliation, which I thought was very funny.
What? Pathetic.
People are.
Yes, massively. So yeah, I think that obviously, as long as she hadn't been openly transphobic, Kelly Barnhill would have handled this better than Christina Dalcher, the author of Bollix. But no, the fact that she actually does include it kind of just as a passing fact, I think was the right choice for a cis woman's book that isn't like focusing on that issue. It's like, yep, this is about men versus women, but also there are men and women who are on both sides, and there are people who are neither and who have transitioned one way and the other. Like, it's just kind of mentioned in passing. It's not something to focus on. Like, I think it's done really well in terms of like just not making it a focus.
I am still here. I can just hear my cat shouting outside.
Yeah, he's in the kitchen.
Oh, he's in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It sounded like he was right outside my door. That was really weird.
He's outside the kitchen. He's in the kitchen. Just he's crying because he's hungry.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm still here.
But yeah, so I wasn't expecting to love this. This is one of the books I didn't even expect to get to this month. This was on my Gothtober TBR for the empowerment prompt. Because I thought, you know, women. And women. And I actually read a different book earlier in the month for that prompt. So I didn't even need to read it if I wanted to fit the prompt. It was fine. But somehow I've been doing well with my reading, so I just decided to blast through and pick it up. And oh my god, like, I was teary at the end. Not of this one, that was funny. This is a comedian's memoir.
Mm-hmm.
I was teary at the end. I was not expecting that. I went into this just thinking it was going to be fine. I was like, oh, like, it sounds really interesting, but I shouldn't have said yes to Olivia. Like, I have enough books. My TBR is big enough. I should have just, like, let this go off to a different home, and then instead I've given it, like, a 4.5. Like, I really...
It didn't. You got teary-eyed and it only got 4.5?
Yes.
If something makes me cry, it gets an automatic 5 stars.
I was very tempted to give it 5 stars. For some reason, I'm hesitant, but I will do this sometimes with books where I'm like, is it a 5-star read? And then I'll come back like 3 months later and I'm like, bitch, yes, it's a 5-star read, and I'll change my rating.
I'm still thinking about it. It's a 5-star read.
Yeah, like it might just have to sit with me for a while. This may be a 5-star read. I need more time for it to be with me. We shall see. But it's like, it's a 4.5, potentially a 5. It's not a 4. It's either a 4.5 or a 5. It's one of the two. Mm-hmm. And yeah, after having expected it to be like a 3 and just be fine, like, loved it. Couldn't put it down. Really well written. Like, the writing is very engaging and you don't want to stop reading, which was, yeah, it's also very pretty.
Petty. I think she's talking about the Vox author.
Yeah, I'm assuming the Vox or the guy that did the thing, but yeah, you're right. It is.
That is so petty. I thought you said pretty. I'm maintaining the book is very pretty.
It is. I unhauled my copy because I saw that Olivia unhauled it either having read it and only giving it like 3 stars or not reading it. And I was like, I don't think this is going to be for me because I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon and was like, this is sweet, but it's also just fine, and just didn't emote with it very much. And was like, I don't think I'm going to like this, even though I bought it at Yelk. That was one of the books that I just got rid of this year because I was like, I'm never going to get to it. And now I'm kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe that was silly of me.
I mean, if it comes up on like Scribd or something, like,
yeah,
you know, I'm not going to
prioritize it, but I do feel like I'm annoyed that I didn't keep it.
Yeah, it's one of the ones where I'm not going to tell you to run out and get it because I don't know for certain that you will enjoy it. However, I do think that you should give it a shot if it kind of appears in that scenario. So, you know, if someone else offers you it as an unhaul at some point, or if it comes up on Scribd and you're like, oh yeah, that would work this month, then yes, Like in that scenario, 100%. But I'm never sure enough on recommending people books to be like, you need to buy it. So
Okay, Hamlet is actually outside my room now because I can see.
Yeah, he is now. He's not in the kitchen anymore. He was in the kitchen before. He's now outside your room.
I give up.
you seem so
I
happy
think
about
genuinely, I'm really proud of us that we've carried a live show, just the three of us, with how sleepy we are, for an hour and a half. Do you guys know what you're going to read for Found Family next month?
Yes, because it's the only. Have you not? I know you haven't because you've been busy. But have you not watched my TBR that went up yesterday?
I've saved it in my watch later.
It's the only non-fiction book on my TBR because I needed something for the prompt.
Makes sense. Ah, yes.
Because I feel like the whole group of people in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold universe is very much. I mean, some of them are family, but like the group of them is very much found family, caring for each other. So
That's fair.
that is what I'm going to be reading next month. I am incredibly excited. I will cry, and I will give this 5 stars. So I can already tell you all of my thoughts on it before I've read it.
That's fair.
Do you have any clue, Lizzie?
No, I'm literally staring at my bookcase is going. No idea. No clue. None. Nada.
Nada.
Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, Hannah, I think you're going to have to go look at her TBR.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Lizzie and I are actually going to be at the live show. What with the whole us being in a panto on the night of the live show?
What night is the live show?
Yeah, what date is that?
Sunday. Because I can't. Are we Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, Thursday, Friday,
No,
Saturday.
we will be there, but it'll be after the panto.
And we'll be snackered.
I may not be at the live either. I truthfully don't know.
It's going to be a great show, guys.
Yeah.
Who's Celine's? Celine's.
Think so, yeah. I'll try my best, but I will be either in Scotland or Newcastle. And as we all know, my laptop does not travel.
No, your laptop doesn't move.
No. Also, there's the potential.
Abby, that's not good enough. That's what an excuse. Awful excuse. I'm joking.
Well, I also might be on a train because I have work on Monday.
All these excuses, honestly.
Well, fine. Then you two skyve off for your panto. We'll have to tell the others to make it last long so that by the time I get back off the train, I can boot my laptop up, wait for an hour for the laptop to boot up, and then join the live stream.
No, we'll be there, won't we, Hannah?
Yeah, for sure.
We will be there.
But yeah, so fingers crossed. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I was just checking. It's my grand's birthday on the 25th.
Cute.
And she's in a care home up in Scotland, so I have to go to Newcastle to then get in a car. It's not going to be my mum's car because it's recently broke. So a car, and drive to Scotland, stay there for the day, and then drive home, and then get the train back to York. It's a long journey.
Sounds great.
And I'm going to have been in Newcastle the week before.
Incredible.
Hannah, I know you're tired. This was a hint promo.
Oh, I thought you were going to just explain about it because that's what I've let everyone else do. Becca posted a video earlier today where she's tagged me in it, and I know because it's a November TBR, I'm like, it's going to be about BookTube Meets.
There's a meetup. It's in Newcastle. Come join us.
Come join us.
Tickets are on sale. Find it on Twitter at BookTube Meets.
Congrats. You absolutely spot on.
Good.
It is not just for BookTube people. If you're on Insta, TikTok, or Twitter, please come along. Come talk to us about bookish things. There's going to be a panel in the afternoon with Olivia, Becca, Ashley, Gavin, and Leanne. And that's going to be fun.
Ooh. I've never met Leanne in person.
Neither have I. But she seems like a hoot.
I'm very excited to meet her in person. Also, it feels weird that I've never met Gav, considering until like recently I lived in Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be good to actually see Gav in person.
I thought so.
But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So yeah, lots of train travel for me next month, which is really annoying because you know what I have next Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Driving test.
Driving test? Yeah.
So I might be doing a load of train travel just after I've either passed or failed my driving test. So,
I guarantee you'll pass. I think it'll be an easy pass for you. I can't see you being a bad driver. Not like Lizzie.
Oh, shut up. We've lived.
Lizzie nearly ploughed into the side of a Volkswagen earlier, so that was fun.
That was not my fault, though. That was the fucking VW driver not paying attention.
Oh, so you weren't looking at Zach and I and not had your eyes on the road at the time?
That's neither here nor there.
I'm very used to bad driving. If I talked about some of the things my dad has done, I wouldn't want to do that live on the internet. So I'll be fine in the car with you, Lizzie. You can't be worse than my dad.
It's just really funny because, like, so my MOT ran out and I had to wait for an appointment to get my MOT sorted, and everyone kept postponing me. So now it's got to go, even though it's run out, and I'm annoyed and like it's going to be really expensive anyway. But I haven't had my car. It's the TLDR of that. I haven't had my car, which means Lizzie has had to drive us everywhere. And the first couple of times Lizzie drove us everywhere, I was like, there's not a lot I can do about this. Just like it, like there's no point complaining about it because it is what it is. And now I'm just like, okay, I miss having my car now.
Yeah, I am looking forward to having a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be nice to actually like be able to. It's just the little things. Like I'm still going to walk into town, like into the city centre if I need to, because I'm lucky enough that I live that close that I can do that. There's no point driving. It's slower in York. But things like going for the food shop, like at the minute we have to walk 45 minutes and then walk home with only what we can physically carry.
Yeah.
Bless Chris, he has to take everything heavy. So he hates doing that. Or we have to get the delivery in. It's going to be really nice to be able to actually drive and get a food shop and go to the cheaper shop, not just the one that we can actually walk to.
Mm-hmm.
And then like my grandpa really wants. My grandpa's never met my partner. I've been with my partner for 7 years, and he's never met him because my grandpa lives in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, Scotland. Like there is no like when I've talked before about going up to see him, I'd have to get 3 trains, and then he would have to pick us up from the train station and drive for an hour.
That's fair.
And it's actually quicker just to drive. So like it's things like that where like I'm really excited to actually just have a car and be able to do something. But Eleanor is asking when that is. So it is
the 18th of November. And you can find it if you look up BookTube Meets on Eventbrite, or the listing is in, I think Becca's got it in their video.
Is that Becca from the Comic Book Sanctum or Becca from
Becca with Becca in the Books.
Becca in the Books.
Although Becca from Book Sanctum is going to be there.
And yeah, so that it's going to be, I think 11 a.m. till 4?
10 a.m. till 4.
10 till 4, apologies. And the location is basically just by Newcastle's train station. So as long as you can get to Newcastle Central Station, which if anyone's watching, it's in England. We are English. It's the English Newcastle, not anyone that America has decided to name Newcastle.
Or New Zealand. I'm pretty sure there's a Newcastle in New Zealand as well.
Probably. We colonised there as well.
We did. And we weren't very inventive with our names.
No. Most of like the English-speaking world has just got variants of English town names. Literally, New York. Mm-hmm. There's a plaque in one of the churches in York that says, to our sister city, from the new version of you to the old version of you, or something like that in like proper speech. And like it's a big plaque with like the American flag coming out the top.
Incredible.
I'm like, I love it. Vibes.
I like it in Doctor Who when they double down on that and all the like the 60
new.
I was like, yeah, that's a vibe.
Yeah, it's not the shortest of journeys. It's not great for me either, but it's much better for me than it is for you. It's worse for Lizzie and Hannah.
Yeah, we're driving. So we're picking up my mum from Shropshire, driving up on the Friday night, staying over Friday night, hanging out all day Saturday, and then driving home Saturday, and then crashing at my mum's Saturday night to come home Sunday because we've got rehearsal Sunday.
Yeah, Lizzie. I don't know, if I had a spare bed to offer you, I would, but unfortunately my parents only have a single bed.
I thought it'd be a really good idea to have it outside of London, because I was like, well, loads of people want to go to Yalk but can't because they can't get to London. We'll do the other end of the country, and then we just don't have as many people because they're like, no, we're good.
Yeah.
Admittedly, Yalk did mess me about a little bit in the fact that usually it's midsummer, and I was like, well, that's fine. There are no bookish events in November, and therefore people will want to go and hang out with their friends again. No, Yalk is now the week before.
Yeah. But also, Eleanor, for Eleanor, it would be pretty much the same as going to London, because unless she would go the west route, which why would you do that to yourself? Then you've got to come back again. You'd go the east route down, and it would stop in Newcastle, because it always stops in Newcastle. It's one of the main stations. So technically, it's the same for her as it would be to go to London.
That's fair.
And Newcastle is much cheaper. So.
Yeah. Plus, I'm really excited to go back to Forbidden Planet, because I bought 45 books there last time.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to going home again. Be nice. Not been home in a while. My parents' house still feels like my home.
That's cute.
Even though I've never lived in it. Like, they moved like 6 months after I moved out. So it's not my home. It never has been my home. I don't know the address. If you asked me the address right now, like, I couldn't tell you it. I have to look it up. But going in feels like home. So,
do you know what's really funny? You said that, and I don't know if this is just my brain being weird because I'm tired, or my brain being competitive, but my brain immediately threw up your York address to be like, well, I know your address.
For a split second, I thought you were going to say that it threw up my parents' address. I was like, have I ordered it?
Yeah, I just know it subconsciously. Like, I've got this thing, I joke about it with Lizzie all the time, that I'm a homing pigeon. If I've been somewhere once, I will find it again. And the fact that I can just remember your address is very funny to me. Like, I don't think I would, like, if I got to York, I'd be fine. I could find where you live. But I would have to get to York first. I would need the sat nav to get to York.
Yeah. I mean, like, literally, I couldn't get from the house that I used to live in for 15 years to the Metro Centre, which is a major destination point for people who live in the Northeast, because it is the biggest shopping centre in the UK. I went there a million times. My mum went there. I worked there. All the shops are there. It's inside and it rains a lot in Newcastle. I could not drive there from my house to the Metro Centre. I did it at least once a week for 15 years. Couldn't tell you. Could not tell you how to get there.
That's fair.
It's concerning is what it is. I'm just sat there as a passenger princess. Like, I don't need to know where anything is. I didn't know the name of the main road behind my house.
That's fair.
Until I was 19.
I've always been a homing pigeon. Like, even before I could drive, like, I would just walk home and I would just know my way no matter where I was.
On foot, I'm fine. I was in Preston for uni for 3 days. And after 3 days, I knew where I was going for everything. Absolutely everything. Like, the only issue I had was, like, if they gave me, like, a building name it was a city uni. And if they gave me a building name, I might not know which building it was. But then someone would be like, oh, it's that one there, and point to it on a map. And I'm like, okay, don't need the map. It's over there. In a car, no clue.
That's fair.
You tell me to turn right, and I'm turning left.
Yeah. That is always the tricky bit, is knowing your lefts from your rights.
For some reason, I can't do it in a car.
You
never had to on foot.
That's fair. I'm going to have to skedaddle soon because, as aforementioned, my MOT is at 8:30 in the morning. So I need to be up nice and early so I can do that.
And
I had employment.
So
yeah. And you just need to rest, woman.
Yeah. I've got work tomorrow morning. Yay.
Yeah.
You'll have to come next time, Eleanor. We will want to see you. You should come down. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
But yes. Yeah. So, with that lackluster ending, we're going to end the live stream here. Thank you both so much for coming, especially Lizzie. Thank you. I know you're knackered, so I really appreciate it.
Well, Hannah's had a long day dealing with me, so yeah.
To be fair, I was up earlier than you, but then I wasn't up as early as you, you know?
Yeah. Swings around.
Is there anything that you guys want to promote before we go?
I just want people to buy books from Waypoint Books. Christmas is coming up, so even if you're not treating yourself, you should be treating other people. So buy books, support small businesses.
I'd also like you to buy some books off my eBay page if you haven't looked at it already. There are still some books available. Yeah.
Yeah.
both Lizzie and Hannah's channels are linked down below in the description. You just need to click on them and it'll take you there. From there, for Lizzie's, you will be able to find their eBay link. I believe it's in your most recent video.
Yeah.
It's in the book unhaul video. It's pretty self-explanatory to find. I believe Hannah links Waypoint in every video.
I do.
She does, but also I'm pretty sure that it's linked in the description anyway in here, because I do that now because I have a code if you want to buy the full moon box. So it should just be in the description for you anyway.
Wonderful.
So everything's down there. I have nothing to promote other than watch my video that I put up yesterday, but you've probably done that already if you are here. So that's fine. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and thank you both for being here. And we will see you guys next month. Just maybe not us three. Bye!